Hello guys, Joe here. This is the video from last night's Facebook Live that I did with Ant. I know a few of you will have watched the full length version of this, but if you weren't quite up to watching the full length version, here is the speeded up version for you and the edited version. So first up, I have just gone through some of the products that we'll be using in the tutorial today, and now I'm going to talk Ant through how to blend our background for our card. So Ant's not an experienced crafter, but he is very enthusiastic, and he really wanted to get involved in the tutorial tonight. So I thought I'd give him a try with our brand new beautiful blender brushes, because they are super easy to use and a lot of fun. So I thought this would be an ideal way for him to get involved in his first proper live video tutorial. So I'm just demonstrating for him here how I'm applying the ink using the brush. So I've started with my lightest colour, the sponge sugar, and then taking that into some tattered rose, and then finally I will be using the warm lipstick colour and the bottom third portion of my card. The great thing about the brushes, if you've not already seen them, is that they do have really super soft bristles, and they also have a curved edge to them. So what this allows you to do is to create a really nice even blend without any of those harsh lines that you might sometimes get from a sponge applicator. So I'm just making some space on the work area here so that Ant can get involved, and there you can see his hands at the side there. So he's going to be working on that background piece for me, and I've just given him a little post-it note to pop on his fingers so that he doesn't get them in his work. But I can see now on reflection that he wasn't using them to begin with, but he is now, so that's good. So while he's doing that and he's working on that, I'm going to stamp out our images. So I'm using the Moovellous stamp set. This is a really cute stamp set with our Highland Cow, and I had the idea that I wanted to use a stamp set that wasn't typically for Christmas, but make it Christmassy. So I had the vision in mind of how I wanted this card to look. So I'm just stamping out a few images from that set and using my Memento Tuxedo black ink, and making sure that I'm getting a really good impression using my stamping platform. I have been asked about this platform a few times. It's the Press to Impress, I believe. So I will provide links to that in the blog post that accompanies this tutorial. So I've just stamped all of that out and popped that to one side. Ant's doing a really great job with his background there. The more ink that you apply to that, then the more of a smooth blend that you will get. And the brushes, you'll notice that he isn't changing his brush at all. He's just using the same brush for all of the inks that he's using. So my little cow now, I'm going to move on and show you how I've coloured him up, and you'll see that I have used a picture to help me with this. So I took a picture off the internet of a cow, a Highland cow that was white. Most of the Highland cow images that you come across will be of a kind of a reddy brown colour, but because of the colour scheme I was going for, a wintry look with some muted colour tones, I wanted more of a white looking cow. So that was my inspiration, although I'm not quite sure I achieved it now looking at the two side by side. But I'm using the E51, E53 and E55 to colour the body of my cow, and then the warm grey 3 for his nose, the warm grey 1, 3 and 5 for the horns and his legs, and then I've just applied a bit of the R20 to his nose just to give it a little bit of a pink blush. I'll be using the same colours in the most part for the tree and for the birds, but to deepen the pink I've added I think it was an R20 R22 and then the R32, I believe, I've used for those. I will double check that and list that in the accompanying blog post. So I'm just colouring up my my little tree there again with the E51, E51, E53 and E55, and just adding a little bit more colour to the body of the cow as well, at the same time as I felt that he wasn't quite deep enough in some of those shadowed areas. I'm using really light flicking action with my brush, so that I don't get a full coverage, just a bit of a light coverage, and the effect of fur on the cow, and then just a bit of a leafy feel to the tree. And then I'm going back over both with my blender pen to soften those colours out so that they look more white than they do coloured, so that the colour I've applied is purely just for shading, not to make it that colour. So the other two little characters, the two little birds, I'm using those colours again, the same colours that I've used, but in the opposite order, to be able to colour up those little images. So now we're going back to our background panel now that we've finished colouring up our little cow. And for the background panel, I just wanted to apply a little bit of texture with some water. So I'm just spraying that with my little water sprayer, and then I've taken the nozzle out and just flicked some larger bits of water on there, and you can see that created a really nice effect. But because this is going to be a Christmas card, I wanted a bit of shimmer, so I'm using my old new shimmer spray, and you can't really see it necessarily on the camera here, but you should be able to see it in the pictures afterwards. But that created a really lovely subtle shimmery effect in the background, which I really loved. So now we're going to cut out all of our pieces using our dies. So I'm using the coordinating dies that come with the Moovellous stamp set, and then I'm just getting my assistant to help me cut out the frame for what will be my shaker card. So I've popped those through my snap die cutting machine and popped all the pieces out. So I've now got this lovely scalloped stitched frame, which is a Time for Tea Designs frame, and I've got all my little character pieces. To continue my scene, I did want a little slope of snow, so a little bank of snow, and I didn't have a die for that, so I'm using the Sunny Side Up stencil, which has got this sloped edge to it, and I'm using that as a template, and then Ant, who again is assisting me beautifully, is going to cut that out for me, and he did a great job cutting that out. So I'm also at the same time cutting out my acetate piece that will fit behind my frame and will keep all of my sequins in place while I make my shaker card. So now I've got all of the elements that I think I'm going to use. The next thing that I had to do was figure out where all my characters were going to be and then where my sentiment might be placed. So we had a little bit of a debate between us as to which was the best way to do it, and I liked my tree on the hill and the little birdie on top of the cow's head, and that meant that my sentiment looked really nice in the top centre portion of my background. So before I put all of that in place, I am going to make sure that I've got my my snowbank positioned correctly. So I've used some Cosmic Shimmer Glue to apply that to my frame, and then just snipped off any excess. And now I'm just going to add some adhesive all over the back and all over that snowbank, and then my acetate will go over the back of that. So just snipping off any excess, and then moving on to adhering my stamping my sentiment, sorry. So using the frame that I've already made, I'm just using that to make sure that my sentiment is going to be low enough down and isn't going to be hidden by my frame. And I'm using the sentiment from the Warm Winter Wishes stamp set, which is our little penguin stamp set, and that was part of the last release. A really nice little sentiment that goes really well with this, and makes this a non-Christmassy set Christmassy, if that makes sense. So I've used some Versamark black onyx ink to stamp my sentiment, because I believe that that makes a really nice crisp sentiment, and applying that background now directly to my card base, which is a top folding A6 card base just turned on its side and made landscape. So Ant was just very nicely demonstrating there that we will be using our anti-static bag just to make sure that we don't have any sticky bits that our sequins might stick to. But before we do that, I'm just applying my shaker tape. So this roll of shaker tape is really good because it means I can get a nice curve, and it means then that my sequins won't fall down behind my snowbank. So that was something that I wanted to make sure didn't happen. Ant pointed out that I'd left a few little gaps with my shaker tape. It's important that you don't have any gaps around the edges, because you don't want your sequins to fall behind those gaps and get stuck. We want to make sure that we've got a nice free movement and that all our sequins are visible behind the acetate there. So this is where Ant's applying his anti-static bag. He was very excited to use that. He couldn't believe that such a tool exists. And I'm now just removing all of my backing tape in preparation for adding this to my card base. So now to add the sequins, the fun bit. So these sequins are actually from the range, and it's a very happy accident that they actually coordinate perfectly with my colour scheme. Or maybe buying the sequins did subliminally mean that I wanted to create a project of this colour. I don't know, but it works. So I've just popped all of those in the centre, making sure that they're not going to be underneath any of my shaker tape, and then added my frame over the top, and you can see that they all move really freely and nicely, and none of them have fallen behind that snowbank. So the next bit is to just pop on my images, and I'm using some Cosmic Shimmer Glue to do that. I felt there was enough dimension already in the card, so I didn't need to add any more dimension with any foam tape. So I'm just sticking these guys on directly with the Cosmic Shimmer Glue, and then we're going to add some finishing touches. So because this is a Christmas card, I thought some of the white space at the bottom would be great for some extra sequins, so not just inside but on the snowbank itself. So I'm just randomly picking some of the colours that we've already used and dotting those around the bottom of the card there. And then I'm going to apply some of my stickles. So I really do love the stickles and the effect that they give. They really make it look like we've got some frosty snow around the edge of the card, so all the way around the four edges, and then on top of our little tree to make it look like it's a snowy tree, and then on top of the horns for the cow. I'm using some of my Nouveau crystal drops just to add a little bit of dimension to the beaks of the birds, and some dots with my white jelly roll pen to their chests to add a little bit of extra interest, and then some of those crystal drops to the cow's nose, so it's a nice shiny wet nose. And then the final touch I think that I've added here is then some of the glitter drops, some extra little bit of dimension in amongst those sequins, and that just finishes my shaker card off. I really hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. I had a lot of fun doing it, and it was great to have Anne along to help me with some of the work. I think it's a nice take on a non-Christmas stamp set and gets more use out of your stamp sets. So if you liked the tutorial, please do tune into our next Facebook Live, which will be next Thursday at 8 o'clock, or you can always watch the edited version on the following day when that's uploaded to YouTube. Thank you ever so much for watching today, and I hope to see you all again really soon. Bye bye now.